Thank you very much. It's good to be here on the program for the first time.
I know.
And I love the spirit of this program.
Thank you.
It's dealing with the most important part of my life, and that's women.
Wow.
My wife is number one.
You know, that's amazing. And maybe you can start there because you love this woman.
Well, I think, the reason why God created women is simply to be loved.
Wow. Oh my God, did you hear that? That will preach. I mean, we could just stay there because every woman is looking for love.
God never told a woman to love a man.
Wow.
It's nowhere in Scripture. But he told the man to love the woman.
Right. So she's supposed to receive love.
She was designed just to receive love.
Right.
That's why when she doesn't receive love, she malfunctions.
We're going to come to the woman in a short while. Now, we know you as a very, very powerful man of God that ministers all over the world. We want to know where Dr. Myles Munroe is coming from. Who is Dr. Myles Munroe?
Well, I was born in the Caribbean country called the Bahamas, which was formerly a British colony, just like Kenya. So we speak English because of our colonial masters. We drive on the left-hand side of the street, just like Kenyans.
Wow.
We drink tea 4 times a day.
Just like Kenyans?
Yeah, just like Kenyans. You know, the British, I must say, they made all of their colonies the same. So that's why coming to Kenya is like coming home.
Wow.
I was born in the capital island of my country, which consists of 700 islands in the Bahamas. We have 30 islands that are inhabited. And the capital island is called New Providence. The city is called Nassau. The island is only 7 miles wide, 21 miles long. And I was born in one of the poorest villages on the island that is called Bainstown.
Wow.
It was considered to be the low-income area. And I was born in a family of 11 children.
Whoa.
I am number 6. I was born to a wonderful mother and father, and they taught us about God. My father was a Baptist minister. I was born into a family where my parents were both in the ministry. My mother was a missionary and did a lot of work among the poor people in our community. And so we were brought up to respect God, to love God. Our house that we were born in was a wooden house on 4 big rocks. And that house was put on 4 big rocks to keep the roaches, the rats, the snakes out of the house. Of course, they got in. The wooden house that we were born in had 2 bedrooms. One for my mother and father, the other for my 7 sisters.
Wow.
So the 4 boys had to sleep on the floor. So I began my life sleeping on a wooden floor on a mat. And I had to share that with my 3 other brothers. And, of course, we grew up fighting mosquitoes, roaches. Every morning we had to wake up and brush the mosquitoes and roaches out of our floor into the back of the yard. And, we had to wear 1 uniform for a year and a half, a pair of shoes for the whole year. That was my life. That's the best they could do. 11 kids. Only my father was working, and my mother stayed home to take care of us. So we were very, very fortunate to have loving parents. And that's what they gave us, love. They taught us about the Bible, which I think was very important because now I look back on it. If they had not given us the Bible, we probably would have been atheistic children because we were confused about a father who was preaching about a good God, but we had a bad life. He preached about a rich God, but we had a poor experience. So we were having contradictions. And so at age 13, I sought myself. I tried to find out about myself. And at age 13 is when I actually discovered God personally. And that was outside in the bush on the island one night when I was crying out, trying to find out why was I born, who am I, why are we poor, what's wrong with black people, why am I not benefiting like the other white people who were there, and questions. And God answered my question by saying, I want you to read the 4 Gospels. So at age 14, I read the entire 4 Gospels 7 times. And it was during that time that I began to discover a Jesus that my father didn't preach. I discovered a message my father didn't preach. So I became a very curious child. I began to ask my mother and father questions about the Bible. And out of all the 11 kids, I was the one that was consumed by the Bible because I wanted to know, why was I born? Who was I? Where was I from? What was I born to do? Where was I going? Why was I poor? Why did life treat me this way? Questions. And my parents couldn't answer a lot of these questions. They were wonderful people. But I got my answers directly from the Bible, and I developed a personal relationship with God at age 14. And so began my life. So being born in a poor environment, I think, helped me to appreciate what I have. Today, people see me, and they see me on television. They see me walking around, speaking to millions of people. They see me, writing books and distributing worldwide. They look at me and they think, well, this was kind of a gift. It's not a gift. This is a result of hard work, testing and failing and getting up and challenges that you go through. And today, I am very grateful. I was an F student in school. It wasn't because I was not smart. It's because the teacher wasn't a good teacher.
Are you serious? You were F? Are you talking about yourself, Dr. Myles?
Yeah, when I was a kid in junior high school, I was an F student. Because I think the teacher was prejudiced against black kids. He was a white teacher. And said some things to us that didn't encourage us too well. As a matter of fact, the teacher told me that I was retarded, uneducable. I was a half-breed monkey. They called us names back then. And the colonial powers didn't treat us well. As a matter of fact, we didn't become independent until 1973. So most of my formative years were brought up under segregation, racism, etc. Similar to what happened here in Africa.
And with all that oppression, with you being put down and called names, you still determined that you were going to rise up?
Yes, I overcame that through reading the Bible.
By yourself?
By myself.
I mean, your parents, you said your father, what he was teaching and how he was living were totally different.
Yeah.
But then how did you then realize that there was something deeper? How did you start digging it?
Well, the reason is because I believe that God will only tell you what you want to know. God doesn't offer information. He responds to hunger.
Hey.
So I became hungry for the truth. And God will only show you what you want to see. So I think out of all the children, I was the one that really wanted to know answers. And when I discovered the knowledge in the Bible, that is when my concepts of myself began to change. I realized that I was made in God's image, not the image of a monkey.
Wow.
I realized that I was not ignorant or retarded, that I had the intelligence of God. I was made in his image, his likeness. I was just like God. I read that in the Bible and I believed it. So suddenly I realized that everything that the teachers told me were not true.
So did you have to first forgive them for what they had called you?
Well, I think it wasn't easy. But of course, when you begin to fall in love with God, you forgive everybody. Because the love of God forces you to understand that other people are also God's image. So you can't say you love God and hate people.
Right.
That's why any religion that destroys human life cannot be from the God of the Bible.
Right.
Because the God of the Bible loves human life. It's his image.
Yeah. Right.
So I forgave. And of course, I went through high school and studied by myself. I went from an F student to an A student in 6 months.
Wow. Wow.
Based on the Bible principles. I graduated top of my class in 1 year. In high school, I went to a government high school. I graduated the top student in the school. So I went from an F to success.
In 6 months?
In 1 year.
In what? So it means that you had to really study a lot and to change your mind from the inside.
Absolutely. And I decided to educate myself because I couldn't trust teachers anymore.
Yeah.
The teacher told me that I was a half-breed monkey, that I couldn't learn. So I decided I'm going to not trust their opinion. And I basically educated myself, became the #1 student. I graduated from there and I went to a school called Queens College in the Bahamas that was only reserved for white people. But we had just become independent as a black country. Our country is 98% black people. So when we gained independence from Britain and the black government took over, they began to desegregate all the white schools. And so my wife, I met her at that school. We were the first blacks to actually go to that white school. And I went to the white school with an intention to prove to the white people that I was not retarded or less than they are. And of course, I graduated from that school with my, what they call A-levels. I'm sure you heard about them.
Yeah.
And I actually got them before I was supposed to get them. And I was advanced. And I met my wife, Ruth, at that school. We became friends. And of course, 35 years later, we've been married for 35 years.
Did you know that she was going to be your wife when you met?
I didn't know, but I
Yeah.
thought that she was the one among all the ladies who didn't look at me. So she became a challenge.
Oh my God.
Of course. And
Yeah, the hunter in you rose up.
absolutely, you know, I mean, of course, I was involved in a teenage ministry that we started,
Okay.
which was a music group. And so at age 16 and 17, we were having teenage crusades all over the country.
So what you're saying, Dr. Myles, is that you didn't have time as a teenager to riot and rebel.
No. I think what's important for young people need to really find their purpose early so that they could use their time effectively. Most young people don't know why they were born, so they use their talent and gifts on the wrong things. I discovered mine very early. I discovered why I was born when I was 13. So I was able to write my plans on paper at age 14, and therefore I was able to plan my life. By the time I was 15 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
15?
And 15. So I didn't have any involvement with drugs or sex or girlfriends. I was reading the Bible constantly, and I was trying to understand why I was born. And then I formed a music group that became very well known in the island, and we wrote our own songs. And then we began to have meetings for young people. And what happened, the rest of it was history, because by the time I was 17, we had over 3,000 kids coming to hear us play and sing. And so I was a teenage phenomenon in the country. And my wife, who's here with me tonight, she'll tell you that we were very, very successful as teenagers. So we went to school and then did concerts. Went to school, did concerts. So I was an A student in school, but also #1 recording artist as a teenager. And so that's how I got to get involved in ministry as a teenager. And I told that story for a reason. All the girls, would come to our events. And of course, I was the leader of the group, so, they tried to attract me to them.
Right.
But this girl never showed any interest in me. So I said, I like this girl. She doesn't show any interest in me. I think if a woman wants a good husband,
Yeah.
she shouldn't look for him.
She should ignore.
She should ignore him.
Even if she likes me
Absolutely.
from the... Come on.
Just ignore the brother.
Yeah.
See, men like a challenge,
Yeah. It's
So
so
anyhow,
amazing you would say that, because when my husband asked me out, I said no.
Excellent.
And he knew I was the one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
That's
did the same
amazing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she told me no. So I said, I'm going to get you. So I got her.
Wow.
Anyhow, I went to university, and that's when we separated. She stayed back in the Bahamas and went to a local school, the specialist school for secretary and administration, and I went to university in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Oral Roberts University.
Yeah.
And I did 3 bachelor's degrees in 4 years
What?
and graduated with honors.
In 4 years?
I did
3
master's degree in
degrees?
18 months. And today I have 5 doctorate degrees bestowed upon me from 5 universities. I went back home
Out of being told that you are
that I was
retarded.
retarded and not educable.
Preach now. Preach to a woman watching us today. What?
I returned home in 1980, and I was hired by the government, and I ended up being a teacher in the classroom. And then I was promoted to working with the government. I became assistant secretary in education. I worked with the Prime Minister's office, Deputy Prime Minister's office, and so I got also to taste a little bit of administration in government. I worked closely with the Prime Minister's office as well, so I was involved in understanding politics. And my wife and I got married before I graduated with my doctorate degrees. She and I got married in 1978.
Wow.
And today, we've been wonderfully enjoying each other. My wife also came to Oklahoma and studied at Oral Roberts University as well. So both of us had the taste of college. And we returned home. We began our family. And we started a prayer group and a Bible study in our apartment with 7 people. And today, it's one of the largest churches in the country.
Wow. Tell me, you're very, very, very key on purpose.
Absolutely.
And the whole world knows you for purpose. You teach that a lot. How did you start? How did you birth that and start teaching everybody, even the young people, how to get their purpose and to know why they were created?
I think one of the most important things I discovered is that God created nothing just for beauty. Everything God created was to solve a problem or to meet a need. Whether it's the sun, whether it's the moon, birds, trees, bees, oxygen, everything that exists was designed to meet a need. So I figure if there was a need for the roach and the rat and the mosquito, there must be a need for me.
Yeah.
The need I call purpose. And then I read a scripture, and the scripture says in the book of Proverbs 19:21 that many are the plans in a man's heart, but the Lord's purpose prevails.
Right.
So I began to discover it. And then what refined it, I think, for me was one of our members who was very, very active in church and also in the community. She died from cancer, and she went to see me. I went to see her at the hospital, and I went to pray for her. And she started praying for me, and she was dying. And she said to me, she said, son, she was the older lady in our church. I was the young pastor. And she said, son, don't pray for me. Let me go home. Why don't you go ahead and fulfill your purpose? I've completed mine.
What?
That statement stirred me forever. And of course, I had to bury her a couple of months later. And at her funeral is when I preached my first sermon on purpose, that you don't die until you're finished what you were born to do.
Wow.
And I began to research purpose in Scripture. I was living it, but didn't understand it until that moment. And of course, I spent 2 years teaching on one subject, purpose.
Purpose.
And it became the theme of our ministry, the driving force of our lives.
Yeah.
And then eventually, of course, it was exposed on TV, books were filled with it, and then people began to realize that they also were seeking for purpose.
Right.
And every woman watching this program, they need to know that they were not born just to have babies and cook food.
Preach now.
They were
This
born
is it.
to solve a problem on earth. They were born to meet a need in their generation. That no human being was born just to pay bills. You were not born to make a living. You were actually born to make a difference.
Wow.
And so I think that's what stirred me. And I am driven to help other people find that same thing. No human being came to earth just to breathe oxygen and eat food. They came here to fulfill an assignment that God needed done in their generation. So to everything, there is a purpose. And to every purpose, there's a time. There's a time to be born and a time to die. So everybody was born right on time. They shouldn't die until they are finished. And this is the reason why I travel the world, to help people discover, not just to discover God, but to discover what God created them for.
A lot of people, I'm sorry, Dr.
Sure.
Myles, if they go through what you did as a little kid, through poverty, through hatred, through being ostracized and told all manner of stuff, normally they give up. And normally they never really arise to become anything in life. Would you just address them and let a woman know that she can't give up just because maybe she was trashed and abused?
Yeah. Well, I think purpose is never destroyed by circumstances. You can destroy your purpose yourself. Whatever you were born to do is still with you. Whatever you were born to become is still in you. If you took a bird and put it in a cage, the bird could still fly. So trapping a bird doesn't destroy flight. It restricts it. So if you, a woman today, you're trapped in a marriage, you're trapped in a job you don't want to be in, maybe you're trapped in unemployment, Maybe you're trapped in an environment where you're in a poor village or something. Listen, that's just a cage. You can still fly.
Wow.
And what I need you to do is what I did, create your own circumstances. You know, a seed always has a tree in it. If you put the seed on a tile floor, it still has a tree in it. The environment is not right, that's all. So wherever you are watching this program, what you need to do is to change your environment. And that may mean changing your friendships, your associations, change the books you read, change the music you listen to, change the people you hang out with, because whatever you are is a result of the people you are with. If you don't like who you are, you got to change the people you are with. Because people create your soil to germinate your seed. Change the books you read. You know, so your purpose is never destroyed. It's only suppressed. Even if you make mistakes, if you are a prostitute, a drug addict, if you are a drunkard, an alcoholic, whatever it is, that doesn't destroy your purpose. It cages it.
Wow.
You need to be delivered from those cages so you can release the flight again and become what you were born to be.
So you can actually be that woman without limits.
Absolutely.
You must stop limiting yourself.
Limitation is usually mental or situational. It is never internal. You are always a great woman. But your greatness could be smothered by your culture, your friendships, your family, your circumstances, or the people that you hang out with. Your greatness is always with you. You know, I'll close with a story. I went to Egypt with my wife, and we went to visit the pyramids, and we saw the remains of King Tut, you know, 3,000-year-old mummy from the Egyptians. And in that display, they had some seeds, and the seeds were in a little display glass case. And I asked the gentleman who was on a tour guide, I said, what are these? He said, these are seeds that we found in the tomb of King Tut. So I said, are you telling me these seeds are 3,000 years old? He said, yes. They were petrified, like rock. They were actually preserved. So I asked him a question. I said, are these seeds still good? Can they germinate? And then he told me a story. That when they found the seeds, they shipped them to Israel to do tests on them. And the Israelis were able to take those seeds, place them back in the right environment, and those seeds germinated and produced some of the largest ears of corn and maize they had ever seen. So I said to him, are you telling me that 3,000-year-old seeds still have life? He said, it depends on the environment. So I want to say to all those watching this program, you may be 7 or 97. It doesn't matter. Inside of you, it's still your greatness. What you need is the right environment. This show today may be the environment you needed to ignite your seed. So your greatness is never gone. It's just hidden.
Wow. Wow. If you're there and you're wondering, will I ever make it in life? If he made it, you're going to make it too. That one last thing I'm going to ask you is you're very, very, very key on family.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because the family is the first institution God ever created. Family existed before government, before church, before every institution on earth. The family was first. So the family is more important than government, it's more important than religion, it's more important than churches or temples or mosques. You should never let anything become more important than the family. Secondly, the family is the only institution God created to produce the future leaders of the world, your children. The schools were never supposed to be the source of education. Your family was supposed to do that. The government was never supposed to create the morals for your children. The family is supposed to produce that. If you destroy the family, you destroy the foundation of the nation. So I am convinced that if we restore the families in Kenya, we would destroy the nation of Kenya, restore the nation of Kenya. So when you start destroying the family, you're destroying the very fabric of your country. This is why I'm very concerned about people redefining marriage, redefining sexes, redefining genders. Because when you start doing that, you're tampering with the most basic institution of your country. And if you were to dismantle the family, you basically have destroyed society. So if a government wants to build a strong country, they should spend money on restoring traditional family. And that has to do with a man or woman who produce children in the context of providing for them values, morals, and standards that are healthy for civil development. This is family. And that's why God did not begin the human race with a government, nor with an institution called a school, or even with clubs or any kind of church. He began it with the family. So restore the family, you'll restore Kenya.
One last thing, the very last one. A lot of people now are really, really coming to Kenya, and they are saying all manner of beautiful things that are happening in this country and are going to happen in this country, Kenya. What's your take on it?
Kenya? Kenya is no different from any other country in Africa. The time has come for Africa to lead the world. Kenya is just one of those countries. And I'd like to warn Kenyans that when destiny turns her face towards you, you must prepare yourself to respond. Being chosen doesn't prepare you. So the season for Africa has arrived, but God will not educate Africa. It must educate itself. So I want to encourage Kenyans to prepare themselves by developing their skills, getting training and leadership development, learning how to manage resources properly, because when it's time for you to lead, that's the time for you to be learning how to lead. You got to be ready. Remember that preparation plus opportunity equals success. So if opportunity comes but you are not prepared, you will fail. Kenyans should be focusing on preparing ourselves to lead the whole world, because Africa time has arrived.
Wow. 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 Thank you very much, Dr. Myles.
It's a pleasure.
I'm gonna let you go rest, because I know you've been so busy all this
It's okay. It's my pleasure to serve you and to serve the
Thank you.
people watching. And remember, your greatness never goes away. It's always there. I hope today you would tap into it and expose yourself and let the world see how great you are.
Wow. And Dr. Myles Munroe was so amazing at the Daughters of Zion meeting. We were so delighted to have him, and he blessed the women so tremendously.